Okay, good evening, Chapter 288. It's good to see everybody here joining and socializing, but it's time to start. Would you please take your seats and sit down? Excuse me. I'd like to get started. Would you all please take your seats and sit down? I know you haven't seen each other in a while and you want to socialize, but Matt, they're not sitting down. Matt, I might need some help with this, Matt. How are we going to get them to sit down? They're not listening to me, Matt. Try what? Thank you, Matt. That did it. I can't hear anything now, but for those of you that have been to an EAA meeting in Keith's Hangar, you understand that. If you haven't been to a meeting in Keith's Hangar, well, that's how we get the meeting started, because people haven't seen each other for a month or so and they want to socialize. In this case, it's 4 months. This is the 4th virtual broadcast we've done. And it looks like it's going to continue for a while. We have really no end in sight. Matt's phone number's on your screen if you want to call in a question, but just remember there's about a 20 or 30 second delay for what I'm saying to what you're hearing. So make your phone calls as soon as you can. Some of you may remember this picture. This is what it used to look like at Keith's Hangar. 100 people would show up for a meeting, and we always had a great time. We can't do that right now. This picture, believe it or not, was taken by Roofman. I guess that's easy to believe, but it was in 2015, over 5 years ago. That airplane in the background is the one-week wonder, the Zenith, that was built at Oshkosh in 1 week and then made a tour of the country. So that came here, and I just wanted to say I miss all you people. And I know that, Paul Proberezny, our founder, his vision for EAA was aviation, education, and social. So I know that this social thing is a little bit difficult right now, but thanks to Matt twisting my arm and convincing me we should be doing this, we're doing it. So, oh yeah, turn off your cell phones so they don't bother me when they ring. I'm just kidding. I can't hear them if they ring at your house. So remember to turn them back on after this is over. Again, thanks to Matt and Dave. We're in Dave Baldwin's hangar. That's kind of what the setup is that's making this happen. I couldn't do it without Matt. And again, Matt's the one that proposed this. And at first I went, I'm not so sure we should get into it, but I'm really glad we have. So thanks to Matt, thanks to Dave. I think we have some people. One benefit of doing this virtual is I know that there's at least one member watching it from Maine tonight, my fellow maniac. And I think there's some people in Illinois, Indiana, possibly Colorado, who are actually watching this broadcast tonight. So that's one benefit of doing it virtual. So I'll hello to all you folks out there, and of course all you folks in the Daytona area as well. Speaking about Dave Baldwin, that's Dave Baldwin's new helicopter, and that picture was taken in California. Dave just made the cross-country trip from California to Florida, got back here yesterday with his beautiful new Robertson 66. And he sent me a few photos along the way. That's he and Tony. And I got to say, if you're going to take a cross country at 100 knots and probably 100 feet would be a whole lot of fun. I don't know how high they went, but probably not very high. But I want to say one thing, Tony, that smile on your face says it all. We as a chapter are just so dang glad that you're that happy and you can smile like that. Just happy to have you with us, and I think, Dave's responsible for that too. So we're glad you made it back. So what do you do if you're flying cross country in a helicopter, and you got to make a lot of stops anyway? Well, you stop into Colorado, and you run into Jack and Mary Peck. So they stopped, obviously, had lunch or breakfast or whatever with some chapter members out in Colorado. So great trip, Dave. We're glad you're back. I'm sure it was a lot of fun. Oh yeah, people keep asking me, what's Keith? Where's Keith's whereabouts? What's he up to? Well, I found him. He's given Orville some duel there. But I did ask him how he was doing, and he sent a message back. He said he tested positive on Monday, 29 June. He had only mild symptoms of the COVID for a day, improved to normal within 2 days. His quarantine period was over Monday, July 13th. And Linda and Mike are doing fine, too. I saw Linda this evening, and she's been tested twice, and she's doing fine. So, again, we're real happy to hear that Keith is doing well. So, if you want to know Keith's whereabouts, that's where he's back giving Orville a little bit of duel there. Oh, tonight's agenda, we'll get some chapter happenings. The virtual tour, that's been going over really well. Laura Kelly is here. She's a 21-year veteran of the U.S. Army, flew helicopters in Europe and Iraq, and she's got a great presentation. And again, aviation, education, and social. We'll learn a lot from Laura tonight. So I'll be introducing her shortly. Laura comes to us. She's been here about 6 months or so, I guess. And she belongs to the Orlando chapter as well, which is a good chapter, but we're happy she's here with us. And if there's anybody from Orlando who's watching this, you're welcome. Welcome to watch the show. Rick Weiss has done a great job with our website. This is just a few things that are on it. You can look at the calendar, schedule the simulator, there's a swap shop, lots of links to EAA Aviation, builder's logs, FAA links, and that particular picture there, that's a Yankee Lady. That's a B-17 that's actually, I've ridden in that airplane. Jeff Rule, one of our EAA members here in Daytona, in the creek, is the pilot on that airplane. And he actually flew it on July 4th over the Washington, D.C., over the Capitol. He led a flight of 4 P-51s with Yankee Lady. So glad to have Jeff with us. And those are just some of the things that you can find on our website. The calendar's looking kind of sad. There isn't a lot of things going on. VMC, IMC, we're not doing any of that. I'll just remind you again of the celebration of life for Bonnie and Dennis is scheduled October 10th here at the Spruce Creek Country Club. And I guess that depends on what happens with COVID, if we're allowed to meet, or who knows at this time what's going on in October. So that's about it for the calendar. As Dennis and Bonnie's niece has made a great website in their memory. It has some really great photos, great memorabilia, and she'd like you to go on the website and RSVP if you intend to attend the gathering on the 10th. So that's and it's this really simple website, DennisandBonnie.com. In place of AirVenture, EAA headquarters has put together a website called Bringing EAA Together. All the info, including the event schedule, is on our website, but they've got a lot of events planned. It's a virtual AirVenture, I guess. So some of the things on the schedule, right now there's 170 events already scheduled. So there's a huge variety of entertainment from home building to military aircraft and everything in between. So they're really trying to fill in the void that we're missing by not going to Oshkosh this year. And again, if you want to check this out, it's on our website, EAA288.org. Simulator's going really well. Jack Moyer's done a great job with that. I actually flew it almost 2 hours yesterday. Did a whole bunch of approaches. I did some approaches back to my home territory up in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Did a few approaches down here. It's really a good simulator. And again, if you want to schedule it, it's open to EAA chapter members. There are about 10 instructors that instruct in it. And again, on our website, you can find the information for that. So when you have two CFIs in the airplane, who's the pilot in command? Craig and Ted are actually out there doing their COVID, wearing a mask while they're flying. Ted, by the way, his inspection on his RV-10 is tomorrow. So that's pretty amazing. He started that airplane in February of 2019, and the inspection is scheduled for tomorrow. So here they are in the 8 this time. So I don't have an update on Craig's airplane, but I know Ted is scheduled for his inspection tomorrow. We've been doing this since we started, and it's really come along nicely, and I thank you for all the suggestions. One of the suggestions I got, which is a good one, was, we've been featuring airplanes, but there are so many people in the chapter that have other things. I know of a model train set that fills a 2-car garage. So if there are things of interest like that, we call them toy boxes, things of interest like that other EAA members would be interested in. It's a way of meeting people. It's a way of learning how to build something different. So next month when you submit things, if you have a train set, and you know who I'm talking about out there with a train set in his garage, go ahead and submit that. It's interesting stuff. It's educational stuff. So we always started out, what's in your garage, your hangar, your living room, really what's in your toy box. That's really what it boils down to. So again, submit some toys next month also. I appreciate everything that everybody has submitted. because it makes it very interesting. I think it does anyway. Matt's number, if you need it, if you have any questions, and I'm going to start with some new submissions this month. Joe Friend is building a 1/16 scale Sopwith Campbell RC model. That's his RV in the background, but it's quite intricate. If you watch this, the first month we had, Joe submitted a couple other airplanes, and I think I actually started with model airplanes when I was a really young kid with a control line. You'd get dizzy and go around in circles, and I think that's really what got me into aviation, was model airplanes like this. Nothing as intricate as this, but so Joe, I don't know, he's got a whole collection of these things. Joe Tichy, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Joe. He's building an RV9 tail wheel. He's calling it a slow build. The vertical and horizontal stabilizers are complete, along with the ailerons, the flaps. Fuselage is about 10 weeks out. He's located just a few doors down from Craig Cousins, building his RV-14. Joe says he's open to any guidance from the chapter, especially when it comes to electronics. So there's his number. If you don't have time to write it down, you can give me a call or send me an email. Joe would like some information about electronics. What do you think? Because there's so many people in here that are so knowledgeable in that kind of stuff. So Joe asked if I would make that request to you all. Trying to change, Matt. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Okay, these are some of the components of Joe's airplane that he's already worked on in his garage. Part of the wings, part of the tail section. And, of course, in Spruce Creek, or most aviation homes, we have to have some aviation decor in our house. So Joe chose to put the vertical stabilizer in his house as decor for aviation. And I guess that's like anybody else. When you run out of room, you bring it inside like Craig did into his living room. So there's some necessary decor in any aviator's house right there. I can't advance. Okay. There's a little technical problem here that we just have to work around. It's just I can't advance all the time, but just bear with us. Keith Moser recently finished up a Zenith 801 Stoll. It's a very interesting design. It's not advancing. I know. Okay. All right. Keith's airplane has got a Czechoslovakian 6-cylinder inverted, fuel-injected, supercharged, constant speed prop, 235 horsepower, certified for auto fuel. And if you look at the wings on that airplane with 235 horsepower, it must leap off the ground. It must be hard to keep that thing on the ground. So Keith's plan is to fly, first flight August 3rd. He's going to fly off the Phase 1 hours, get it painted, then ship it to Africa for service in a missionary hospital. So that airplane's going to be well served, but that I can imagine with that kind of horsepower and those kind of wings on that airplane, it's going to be really a great Stoll airplane. So going back to this picture, if it looks familiar, what Keith's airplane, this was the one-week wonder again 5 years ago. Keith's airplane is a 4-place version of that, and it's got the Czechoslovakian 6-cylinder inverted engine. What can you say about Roofman? Last week I made the mistake of pretending to give Roofman the microphone, and of course he couldn't talk to me. But what he did is flood my inbox after that. So this is a Roofman creation. I didn't realize that Roofman was into building airplanes, but he says he designed an RV-82 by Werner von Roofman right here at the top secret Spruce Creek Skunk Works. We all know Roofman is a master of Photoshop, so here he was flying it with a couple of other RV-8s, and his comment was he initially assumed that 250-knot airplanes would go 300 knots. Not the case. Thank goodness he didn't have two F-16s to try that with. So anyway, the RV-82 project was eventually scrapped because nobody would let Roofman sit in the left seat. If you notice, he's in the right seat there, and because of that, he scrapped the whole program. Now that is photoshopped. We all know that. This one's not. I'm going to call this tonight's mystery airplane. Raise your hand out there if you know what this is. I don't see any hands in the hangar because there's only 4 of us in the hangar, but anybody know what that is? Again, this is not a Photoshop. That's the inside of it. It's doing about 115 miles an hour, 3,100 feet. Don't look up the tail number. Don't look up the end number on Google, because then you'll find out what it is. Here it is in the paint booth. And I don't know if you recognize the painter there in that paint booth, but that's our own Bill Wallace. So this airplane, this is from Bill Wallace. Jim Gouldy and I restored this aircraft in 2017. Began the process at Massey as the aircraft had been damaged in a landing accident. It needed extensive repairs to the right wing, the cabin, the cowling, and the vertical stabilizer. We flew the aircraft here, hopefully after he made those repairs, where he painted it to the original paint scheme, and he rebuilt the Lycoming 290-D2 engine. The airplane uses about 700 feet to land or take off, stalls at 40 miles an hour, cruises at 135 plus on about 7 gallons an hour. The aircraft won Best Antique Experimental at Sun 'n Fun in 2018. It was purchased at Sun 'n Fun by a previous owner, and it's now based in Rogers, Arkansas, and has flown regularly in the Young Eagles program, getting kids into aviation. So who knows what it is? Great job, by the way, restoring that, guys, and getting it back in flying and getting some Young Eagles exposure to aviation. It's a Jodel, I think I'm pronouncing it right. It's a Jodel D11, a French-designed airplane. It was a production aircraft in Europe, but only plans built in the U.S. and other places. It was designed in the early 50s. And this airplane was modified by the original builder owner. Remember, there was just plans. He stretched the cabin, added a fuselage fuel tank, and enlarged the empennage to utilize a Lycoming 0290 engine. So now you know what it is. And again, that's not Photoshop. This is Jim and Bill did a lot of work on this airplane, the original paint job. So I do have to ask my friends Jim and Bill, because they're ATC people, and I'm just wondering why they're squawking 0000. Well, in my ATC days, that was a code you never let anybody squawk. So if you look at the transponder in the lower right-hand corner, they're on all zeros. But congratulations, great build, guys, great build on that. This is a magazine back in 1969. It was the winner of the 1968 EAA Rockford fly-in for the best wooden aircraft. And it was, again, it won Sun 'n Fun in 2018. So for the 50th anniversary, it returned to flight status. And great job on the rebuild, guys. So I had never heard of one of those, obviously. And I don't even think Roofman heard of one of those, because he'd be photoshopping it if he could. Updates on a few projects that we have featured in the past. One of the things I like the most about being the president of this chapter is giving out special achievement awards. And normally we do it in front of a big group and call the person up and say, hey, good job building your airplane. Well, this is Tom Cody. Tom Cody for completion of successful first flight of his SPA Panther on March 13th of 2020. March 13th, by the way, was a Friday. So Tom chose Friday the 13th to fly his airplane for the first time. Round of applause for Tom. Everybody, stand up. Big round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There we go. Greg Ryan. Greg Ryan worked on his T-34 for about 4 years. This was June 2nd. We're calling the first flight June 2nd. He brought it back from the paint shop that day. So again, congratulations to Greg on great restoration of that T-34. Round of applause for Greg. Everybody stand up. Let's hear it. Very good. And that's Vicky in the back seat. This picture was taken last Saturday by Gary Rosier. Gary Rosier takes some great pictures, sends them out freely to lots of people. So I had a lot of pictures to go through, and I chose my favorite, and that's my favorite. And the reason that's my favorite is I own that with Carl Crester. So that's the Tiger that Carl and I fly around in. That was Saturday. Just a great picture, Gary. I invited Gary to watch this show tonight. I don't know if you are, Gary, but if you are, thanks a lot for those great pictures. That's Matt's phone number. If you have any questions, the builder's log is available on our website. If you're building an airplane, it's a great place to track your building. Again, that's our website. Rick is always changing the pictures. So if you have anything that you want to post on our website, EAA288webmaster@gmail.com. Lynn O'Donnell sent these pictures. It's just an example of what goes on here in the chapter in Spruce Creek. Most of you probably remember she had to take the wings off the airplane and brought it home. And it was time to put the wings back on. So she asked for a little bit of help. And nearly the whole neighborhood came out to help her put the wings back on. I remember that day. I think we were supposed to be there at 10. I got there at 10 and the project was already done. So I just bring this up because this is our chapter. This is what we do. When somebody needs a hand, somebody needs some information, a tool, thank you, Keith. If somebody needs anything, Chapter 288 is there to help out. So this was on the day they put the wings back on the Stinson. It's the spirit of aviation. That's what we have here in Spruce Creek. That's what we love about the EAA. We love our flying, our education, and our people. So that's about all I have for now. Miss Laura. Yes, go on over here, please. Tonight's guest speaker is Laura Kelly. Laura served in the U.S. Army for 21 years. She flew several helicopter rotary aircraft. She was in the military in Europe during some exciting times and in Iraq. And she is here now. Come on over so they can see you. Our movie box. Okay. This is Laura, and this is yours, and I'll fix the, you might want to drop that down.
You think? Boom. I think it's back on.
Okay.
Yes, it's on. So when John asked me to speak, I was stumped.
I got to be rude and cut in front of you.
Yeah, no, go ahead. It's all right. When John asked me to speak, I was stumped because this is such a diverse audience. I didn't know what people would be interested in. So instead of just going through my military career, where I was, what I did, I think it'd be more interesting to tell, along with following a timeline, but stories and interesting stories and adventures I had, people I met, historic events I was a part of. So I think that'd be the best way to do this. To begin, the reason why I went in the military, I grew up in a family that traveled overseas quite a bit, and from that I realized how lucky we are to be living in this country, and I wanted to be part of the force that protects what we have. I was very proud of our military, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I did have a private, this was back in the 80s, I was in my 20s. I did have my private pilot's license. I did not have a 4-year degree. I did have a 2-year degree. But honestly, it was not about a career in aviation. It was about serving my country. So from that, I went and talked to recruiters from all the branches, and the one thing that stood out for me was the warrant officer for the Army. And how he explained it to me, because I came from a non-military family, I didn't know anything about a warrant officer and what that was. So as he explained it, you have the enlisted ranks and you have the commissioned officer ranks, and in between is the warrant officer. This is in the Army, and they have officer status, but these guys are the experts in their career field, and that is what their job is. They are single track technical jobs, but they have honed their skills to where they are the elite technical gurus and are very, very adept at their jobs. I was intrigued with this. So as he went on and explained, you have these technical, basically these guys that have been in enlisted ranks for several years to get to that point of being that good, and they're about their junior, senior enlisted ranks. And they appoint them into the warrant officer basically as a reward. So, but in the Army, and only in the Army, there is, in the warrant officer rank, there is a way to do a direct entry from the side where you can come in from the outside, but it is only in aviation helicopter program that they had. You can also come in from the military as well, but this was a way to come in direct entry. And you actually go through warrant officer training with the technical warrants, and then you go to flight school, and then you get your wings, and you're a warrant officer, and your job is to fly. This sounded great. And then he went on even to say even more. I mean, can it get any better? And then he went on and he said that the commission guys, even as officers, have leadership, command time responsibility. For the warrant officers, leadership and responsibility is way down on the priority list. Your priority is that job and getting good at that job. And then later on, it was more of a teaching or advisory. I know warrants who got to the very top without ever doing or filling out a single evaluation form for anybody who was working on them. So this sold me. This is because I was, at that time in my life, I wasn't interested in management type of work anyway, so this sounded really good. So I jumped in feet first, and it's a hard program to get into. I don't want to make it sound easy. You have to you have to pass a first class flight physical. You have to sit in front of a board. You have several tests. You have flight evaluation tests and stuff like that you got to go through. But I made it, and I jumped in. And as soon as you make it, it was boom, boom, boom. It was like 3 days later, I was in basic training, and then a day and a half after I passed basic training, I went to warrant officer candidate school. So they moved me through really quick. So let me see. How do I get? Okay, it's forward. It's okay, I think. Yeah. Oh, I jumped it too fast. I'm new at this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I love maps. I'm a map freak. This is basic training, and was at Fort Jackson, and you can kind of see there where it's on the border between South Carolina and Georgia, and it's July, August, and it is hot. And you got all that equipment, and you're walking, running every day, and but the name of the game is get through it. Just get through it. But I want to move on. I'm doing something wrong. There. Okay, this is one of the gates to Fort Jackson. Okay, this is the barracks. Now, they separated the men from the women, and I don't mean by floor, I mean by compound. They did not want you to interacting at all. We had 3 male drill sergeants, and that was our male contact. So this is what our barracks looked like, which is actually pretty modern. The 2 things that you have to do to get out of basic training and to go on is you have to pass a PT test, and you have to qualify on your weapon. The weapon is the M16. If you don't do that, they are not letting you go on. And I've known people who have not passed, and they are out. So they're serious about this. So what we did was we had to run every day, like miles, a few miles every day, and they got you ready. And they worked you all day long through with sit-ups and push-ups and the 3 things to get you ready to pass your PT test. Let me see. Oh, okay, so it's working. Tank Hill. Now this is a story. This is one of my stories, and I like to tell it because it does show a connection here with probably other people in the military. But that's Tank Hill. Every basic training base, I think, has a tank hill. If you look at that hill, at that slope, that is a serious hill. And look at that's a postcard on the left, and you can see the World War II barracks. And I can remember running beside the World War II barracks when I was running Tank Hill. And there on the right is what it is today. But it's still the same freaking hill. I mean, that's it. And anyway, so here's my story. So last year I did a road trip, and I went up to the Carolinas to visit some friends, and I went to Fort Jackson. Now, last time I was at Fort Jackson was when I was in basic training, and I drove out of there after graduation and never went back until last year, which was 31 years. And this time I drove up Tank Hill, and I was shocked at how steep it was. I mean, how serious. There's no terrace that you can break. I mean, it is seriously straight up there. When I got to the top, I stopped the car, I got out, and I went over, and I stood at the top of Tank Hill. And I looked down at, first of all, how steep it was, but at the bottom, there was a few trees and a few buildings. But off in the distance, it was all forest. It was beautiful. It's evergreen trees, rolling hills. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, this is beautiful. Why don't I remember this? And the reason why, and it dawned on me, was Tank Hill, running up Tank Hill, that scenery was to my back because we were running up Tank Hill. And then we ran around the base and then came back down and ran up Tank Hill. We never ran down Tank Hill to see that scenery. So I took a picture with my cell phone, and I sent it out. You develop friends for 21 years that were all aviation. At some point, these people have been through Fort Jackson. And all I said was, I showed the picture, and I said, does anybody remember Tank Hill? Bam! I got hammered with like 18 texts from people. Of course I remember Tank Hill. Who could forget Tank Hill? My God, get out of there quick before they make you run it. And the thing is these people, we didn't go through at the same time. But there's a bond that you develop with people that it's etched in that when there's a miserable situation, it becomes etched in your memory. And it's with you the rest of your life. These people will always, all somebody needs to say is Tank Hill, and everybody goes, ah! And you weren't there with them. And it's just, for those 2 decades, we all can identify with Tank Hill, and I will certainly for the rest of my life. Anyway, that's my story. Okay, M16. That is an M16. You have you're out on the range about 4 weeks. I mean, the whole thing is you have to clean your weapon, disassemble and reassemble your weapon, fix your weapon, safely operate your weapon, shoot your weapon, and finally qualify on your weapon. You don't qualify, you don't get out of there. So there is pretty much the drill sergeant worked all of us, and we all qualified, maybe 1 or 2. But so this was getting ready for graduation, and then my parents came down for graduation, and then I was only home for a day, and then I went on to Warrant Officer Candidate School in Fort Rucker, Alabama. So Fort Rucker is in LA, Lower Alabama. And you can see how far south. had never been to Alabama in my life. It was a culture shock, to say the least. Warrant Officer Candidate School actually, let me go on here, hold on. I just can't get, okay. So it's home of Army Aviation as well, the Warrant Officer Candidate School and Aviation. Fort Rucker opened in May 1942. It was Camp Rucker at the time. It was used to train dozens of units, including tanks, infantry, and Women Army Corps was trained there as well. Here's the Warrant Officer Candidate School. And these are the old barracks that were there. Now, the old barracks were there when I went through Warrant Officer Candidate School. So we actually were in these World War II barracks. Now, today, they are gone. And as a matter of fact, if you look there to the right of this slide, you see a road, and from that road all the way over is field, just flat field right now. They are completely gone. So in our warrant, so as the Warrant Officer Candidate School it's about 6 weeks, and they combine the tech warrants with the aviation warrants. So the classes are big. They go through every 2 weeks. We had 100 people in our class, of which I was the only woman. The whole emphasis, I think it kind of mirrors OCS, I think, is just to put it's very, very regimented and put intense stress on you, try to force you to want to quit. But the emphasis is on attention to detail and teamwork. And when you get through all the ridiculousness of the inspections and everything that you went through, I see now, it really did. It really does force you to, certainly attention to detail. Okay, do you want to try that? This is what we call, if it works, disciplined dining. And this is from 2018. We don't have any videos from our class. I stole this off the internet.
Hang on a second.
I'll see if it works. imagine having to eat every single meal like this for, it was about 6 weeks. This is it. Now, we had to do square meals, and when we did square meals, you looked at the guy sitting right across from you like they're doing right there. You're looking at his forehead, but you notice how they were allowed to look down. We were not allowed to look down. We were not allowed to look left or right. We had to look straight at his forehead the whole time. So any kind of cutting up of your food or trying to get it to your mouth was done with peripheral vision. So I see now they're looking down. That's probably because after all of us ended up wearing it on our face and not, and the last thing you ever want to do is laugh. If you laugh, it is all over. I mean, it's like 1,000 push-ups. Your day is miserable, but you start laughing and not try to suppress a laugh, and the tears start coming, and you've got something, you just took a drink, it starts coming out of your nose, and you're looking at the guy across from you, and he starts laughing. It's all over. Anyway, all right, the next. Now, we all graduated from Warrant Officer Candidate School. Now, most of the tech warrants go to different schools around the country for their specialty. Army Aviation, the flight students stay right there at Fort Rucker. We picked up our stuff out of the World War II barracks and moved it to another part of the base and started flight school. So flight school takes about 8 months. The flight class we got a flight class starting every 2 weeks. We started with about 40 students, and ours ended up with 30 graduating. I was again the only woman. Let's see if I can. Yeah, that's. We fly Hueys. At that time, it was all Hueys. Was flying Hueys the whole time. Okay, so it's divided into 6 phases, and each phase is different. Different time, primary instruments, basic combat skills, advanced combat skills. Can't say it. Night vision goggles. Night vision goggles are essential. I tell you, almost every unit I was in, I flew night vision goggles, and they're amazing. And they're the ability of how it amplifies the ambient light and what you're able to see is incredible. But you have to stay current with it. You have to stay on it, because if you haven't done it in a while, it's hard to get everything going, and it's just it's a skill. It really is. It's a skill, but worthwhile one. Anyway, so how this works? Oh, and at the end of each phase, there's a check ride. And you must pass the check ride to go to the next phase. And this is where you've heard the term washout, where people wash out. We had a few. They gave them like 2 rides, 2 chances. They even set them back. They didn't. They washed. It's called elimination. Anyway, so here's my next story. Now, when we actually started, we had the first week was just classroom stuff, academics, and then you go out to the flight line. When you go out to the flight line, you meet your IP, your instructor pilot, and you see who your stick buddy is, and you take a nickel with you. And the reason why, now you go out, you meet your IP. He takes you both out there, you pre-flight, and then you get in and he says, take off. And you're kind of like, woohoo! So take off. But this is called your nickel ride. And this is the only time in flight school that you will not be graded, because that next day until the day you graduate, every time you fly, you are graded. So as a result, the wives of our flight wanted to do something for us to commemorate our nickel ride. So what they did, and we have a very artistic group of wives. They made these helicopters for us. I don't know, can you switch over? And is it switched already? Oh, all right. So if you look at this little helicopter, you see on the front, you see the nickel for the nickel ride. On this side, you see it has we were royal blue flight. Every flight has a different color. And we're royal blue, and we're called Royal Blue Blues Brothers. And then on this side, they have our stick name. And your stick name is, they tell you either you come up with it or we will come up with it for you. So I was a scuba diver, and I was was long before I went in the military. I was working on my advanced scuba diving rating with a bunch of guys, and the movie with Daryl Hannah, where she was a mermaid, she had long hair, and I love the water, and so the guys nicknamed me Splash. So my stick name I used was Splash. So as you can see here where they painted on, the wives painted on. But anyway, if any of the wives from my flight are listening, I still have my helicopter. All right. Graduation. Let me see if I can. Is it back? Oh, yeah. That's Huey's. That's out at Low Field. That's more of a current shot, but you kind of get the gist. It was lines and lines and lines and lines of helicopters, of which every day you're flying, and it was like 3 hours of academics and then 6.5 hours out on the flight line. And there were long, long days, and you came back and you had some kind of organized PT, and somewhere in the middle of all that, you have to eat. So if you can do this for 8 months, do this schedule for 8 months. That's a Huey. That's the orange doors were at Fort Rucker for training. This is another one, a stage field. So we weren't supposed to have cameras, so of course I had a camera. So when we soloed, solo in the military, in the Army, means that you fly with your stick buddy without an instructor. So this was during some of our solo flights that we got pictures flying. So and this, I can fly with my eyes closed. So let's see. Anyway, so graduation. I'm hitting it. Okay. All right, so when it came time to graduation, what it worked back then with the warrant officer program is not what it is today. It has changed. But back then, we went the full way as a candidate until the day we were commissioned as officers. And the only thing is that you were an E5 for pay, and we were struggling to get through. Our thoughts and everything was just trying to get through flight school. You didn't really care. So because this was the day before we got commissioned we became commissioned warrant officers, and they lined all of us up and gave us all good conduct medals. And the reason why is good conduct medals are for enlisted folks only. And the next day we would become officers, and for the rest of our lives probably would never have that opportunity. And because we went through flight school without killing anybody, they gave us all good conduct medals. So if you look at this picture, there's one woman. See if you can find the one woman in this picture. Okay, so the next day we got our commission. You have dishonorable discharge. You're discharged from the Army as an enlisted person, and 15 minutes later you're sworn in as a warrant officer. So my mom pinned my bars on, my dad pinned my wings on, and they even had an aviation ball, and you could bring your family, invite your family to it. So it was a really nice 3-4 days that your family, friends are a part of. And I then left right away for Gurpingen, my assignment in Gurpingen, Germany. And this was with Gurpingen. Let me see. There we go. Okay, so if you look at the map, I love maps. The red dot is where Gurpingen is. It's very near Stuttgart, and it's in this area called the Swabian Alps, which are absolutely beautiful. And Gurpingen has a history. It was a Luftwaffe base in World War II. Oh, no, I went too fast. Oh, yeah, I was there during the Cold War. The Cold War was still going on for a few more months. And that is what the makeup was back then as far as the countries were concerned. Okay, so Gurpingen had a history, Cook Barracks. There was a Luftwaffe base, and what happened was during World War II, we believe they were flying gliders. Let me see if I can get to the map. I'll back up. That's also... Okay, so you can kind of see it's a circular field there. Well, what they did was they had tanks filled with water under the ground with pumps. And after the planes took off, the gliders took off, they would flood the field, flew just a few inches, and it looked like a lake. So consequently, it never got bombed by the Allies. So a lot of these buildings, at least when I arrived, were still World War II buildings that we used, because the base was intact when the war was over and we took over the whole base, basically. Okay, so here's my story. Let me see if I can show you. These are more pictures from they call it Planet GURP. Okay, so you see there, this was out at the airfield where the tower was, but you can kind of see we actually would pick up and hover out, and we'd hover over these big steel grates, and that was where the tanks were under the ground that they would use during World War II to flood the field. So here is my, let's see, I think we're, okay, can go back. Yeah, that's good. Okay, here's my one story. We had 4 Hueys when I got there, 4 Hueys and 2 OH-58s, and I did not know how to fly the OH-58s, and they wanted everybody there to fly all the aircraft. So what they did was something called a local transition, where they would send you with your IP, with the instructor pilot for that aircraft, which every unit in the Army has for each aircraft, to a separate airfield, and you work and you work and you work, and you get the local transition by learning how to fly that aircraft. And the IP just works every day, hours, trying to get you this transition. And I was with Bob, our IP, and we were up at Hohenfels, and I think actually we flew in the Fulda Gap area. This was long before the wall came down. And flew with Bob, and actually flew border missions with Bob. And fast forward about 10 years, I'm getting ready to go back to Europe, and I called Jack, who was a very good friend. He was the airfield commander there at GURP. We're all good friends. And he says, Laura, have you heard about Bob? And I said, no, my God, I haven't seen Bob in a long time. He said he was convicted of being a serial killer. He is the Spokane serial killer. And I said, you're so full of it. And he said, get off the phone, go type Bob Yates serial killer and call me back. And bam, there's Bob's face. Bob is the Spokane serial killer. And here's what I have to say about that. There really is something to this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, unpredictable dual nature. Bob was, and I've talked to people ever since along the way that were stationed with him as well, and we're all in agreement. He was very, very professional. He was a great IP. He was calm. He was complimentary. He would always use sound judgment. There was a time that we were flying with Bob. Bob was giving a check ride to somebody from another unit, and it was night vision goggles, NOE, Nap of the Earth, in the trees. So we were the overflight. And he did a risk evaluation with all of us there, and I was so impressed with how he spoke and how he evaluated risk and his thinking. And it was just really stayed with me, and I actually used it when I became an aviation safety officer years later. So I don't know, yeah, he's a serial killer, but I know the other side. And the other side is, if I saw him today, it'd be like, hey, Bob, what's going on? He would, God, why didn't you kill me? You probably had a reason to kill me. But anyway, so that is that story. So Cold War was still going on, but we were there when the wall came down, went up a few weeks later. And now the Berlin Wall went up in August 1961. It came down in November 1989. And this changed the whole makeup of particularly Eastern Europe. This picture, I think, is right outside Checkpoint Charlie. I love this picture because you see the guy there taking the picture, and you see the wall. See how high the wall is and how thick the wall was. And they were in the process of bringing it down, and they are saying that you're leaving the American sector. I think they actually moved that sign, but it still exists. This was another part of the wall that they were tearing down. I don't have many pictures, unfortunately, but it certainly was huge in Europe. Well, consequently, from the wall come down, it changed everything, and it changed the military in Europe. We had, between 1945 and 1990, there were more than 2,000 large and small airfields and heliports in Germany alone. We had them all over Europe. So all of a sudden, the wall's down, and the Soviets had them too. The airfields are all along the borders and stuff. So when the wall came down, all of a sudden we get into this mode of closing these bases, and it's called the BRAC, base realignment closure. So Gurpagins on the BRAC. So we're moving forces out, we're closing the base, we're turning it back over to the Germans. But on August 2nd, 1990, Saddam Hussein ordered the invasion of the neighboring country of Kuwait. It was a 2-day operation conducted by the Iraqi forces, which resulted in a 7-month-long Iraq occupation of the country. This invasion and Iraq's subsequent refusal to withdraw from Kuwait by the deadline of January 15th, 1991, a date mandated by the United Nations, which resulted in a military intervention by a coalition of forces led by the U.S. These events came to be known as the First Gulf War. So you have all these people in Europe that basically don't have a clear job. They can pick them up, move them to the Saudi Arabian desert, and they picked up the military basically from the United States and plunked it down in the Saudi Arabian desert. I got there, I was assigned to 11th Aviation Brigade, and I didn't get there until sometime in the middle of December. And it was rolling. They had that port, it was just amazing to watch. Let's see if I can, yeah, keep going. Okay, it's amazing. Wow. Okay, look at this map, and if you can see, there's the town Dammam. That was Dhahran, there on the Persian Gulf. That was the port that everything came in through. It was a sea, no pun intended, but a sea of activity, 24/7 of stuff coming in, and then they'd move the ships out and bring another one in, and that you can kind of see. Maybe you can use your I don't know if you've got a cursor or not, but you can run up Tapline Road. It goes from Dhahran and runs, that was kind of that road is called Tapline Road, and that was the heartbeat of our forces. We were very, very spread out. Your location was either north of Tapline Road or south of Tapline Road up until the time of the ground war. So, we were located south of Tapline Road in that area of can't really see it from here, but called KKMC, King Khalid Military City. All right, so we'll move on. Oh, okay, so this is the port, and you can see here where they're bringing in everything. It was, like I said, it was incredible seeing the United States. And it was a coalition of several countries bringing all this equipment in and all these troops and everybody moving out to the desert. I just like this picture. And there we are. There's the unit that I was attached to. They actually were there in the warehouses, sleeping on the floor until they had the aircraft, and then they flew them out to the field site. I like that picture on the left. Looks how tired that, because you know how tall I am, and look how big that tire is. Okay, so we're flying out, and I'm just getting pictures. And they wanted us to fly below 50 feet because of the Iraqi incoming artillery, just in case. It's pretty low, but look at the mass. I mean, this is how quickly and this is Tapline Road. So you can see, and actually Tapline Road had 2 airfields. It could be converted into 2 airfields. This is the picture on the right is one of the Saudi towns. I've got more pictures of that. And this this sheep. So you see, he's got the whole freaking desert there, and he stands right in the track, and he won't move. So we had driving around him, but he was determined. Okay, this is where our campsite. We're out in the middle of the desert. You can see the lounge chairs. So actually, it's a beach chair. So we had to dig a trench around our tents because when it rained, which was occasionally, it was a monsoon, so it would flood the tents. So we had to build these trenches. And this is just a collage of pictures of us getting ready for and flying. Basically everybody's flying, but a lot of it was boredom. Just trying to find something to do. And this was, I don't know how to say it. I'm not supposed to say it, but excuse the language, but it is what it is. It's the Army. It was called the shitter, and it was made by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's basically this, inside you have that door there, and inside it had a plywood with 4 holes, and they used the bottom of the potbelly stoves, and they would collect the crap, and then and then they would burn it like in the afternoon, evening. So it was burning the crap. So anyway, the nice thing about burning the crap was we really, particularly at the beginning, we had no nav aids. We did not have GPS. We did not have TACAN. We had nothing but time distance heading because we had nothing to navigate by. Well, these units that were spread out in the desert, when they would burn the crap, it was like smoke signals. So it gave us, we'd be flying along, and all you see is brown and blue on the horizon, but you'd see all of a sudden some smoke, like a smoke signal, and that was like, that's where you go, fly to that. That was the field site of what we were looking for. It never failed. So that's my story with that. That's just looking at an iguana. This is in Hafrabitin. I like the pictures of the kids. I get pictures of the kids. He was cute. But you can see the city. You can see well, it wasn't a city, the town. These are, we were in the British sector, and these were some British military. And now I started really flying, didn't fly right at the beginning. They already had their assigned crews. So I started when they got tired, which was during the ground war. The ground war was between the 24th to the 28th of February. And then basically it was a ceasefire. So we were flying up there. If you remember, they were talking about that the Iraqi troops were entrenched along the border. Well, these were the trenches. And it's almost like some kind of symbol or language, I'm not sure, but you can also see where our Air Force did a lot of destruction, but like there on the left, it's like they're trying to say something using these trenches, like this one too. And this was a POW camp. This is another story. As a female pilot, I flew into one of these camps that had a lot of POW prisoners. And when I got out of the aircraft, I was on the side of where the prisoners, they had all come over and were congregating there to look at the aircraft, basically. But when I got out, they were all talking and stuff. When I got out and I took my helmet off, and I had, I had blonde hair and short and had a weapon, and I'm getting out of a helicopter, a pilot seat, you could hear a pin drop. It was all of a sudden stopped talking and just stood there and stared at me. And I kind of walked over to them and kind of looked around, but man, oh man, the looks that they were giving me. That was our POW. Okay, so I flew like when the ground war was over, and then for 2 months after. So I did a lot of flying into Kuwait City, and then up what was the road to death, up to Basra, and then out into the Iraqi field sites, out to the Iraqi desert there, the Arabian desert. Anyway, so when we came in from the west, the first time, we're all talking. It's like you got your crew chief, you got your door gunners, and we're all talking. And you see this smoke on the horizon. And as you get closer and closer, we stop. You get to where you now see what they were talking about, these oil fields burning. And when we got there and we were flying over them, nobody said a word. Everybody was just, I think it was shock, and I think it was horror of what our natural resources that were being destroyed by this, by the Iraqi forces. I have a few pictures if I can get this. Oh, I'm sorry, I went too fast. See if I can, yeah, I'll keep going. You can see in this one, there's fluid. A big part of what the story was with these Kuwaiti oil fires, they started actually setting the fire before the ground war was over. They did it as a way of hopefully providing like a plume of clouds that would prevent the coalition forces from coming in. So they were actually burning before the ground war, I think, even started. And they were definitely burning by March 15th. They lit 700 of these, and they didn't just light them. They sabotaged them. They made a lot of them so that, like, they broke off the valve so that that there was no way to even cap them. And the Kuwaitis were the infrastructures that the Kuwaitis had were pretty much destroyed when the Iraqis were in charge, were taking over the country. So they basically had no way of getting this stopped. And like I said, there are 700 of these. It's incredible. So let me keep going with this. So you can see, it's like as far as you could see on the horizon were these fires. So this was flying over. What happened was the world came to the rescue. We brought in the big four, Red Adair, Boots and Coots, Wild Well Control, Safety Boss, and they tried, and it was just too much. So they called in anybody, everybody, and it ended up being over 10,000 workers came in to work on this. So they were projecting about 2.5 to 3 years for these to be done, for them to have these oil wells out. They actually had them done in 8 months. So, praise and glory to those guys that worked this. Okay, this is a good picture, I think. If you look at you see the oil well, and off to the right, there's a Humvee, and it's somebody standing next to it. So that shows you how big these oil fires were. And like I said, I cannot believe it was over 700 of these. Oh, so here's the story about the darn camels, the camels. So you're flying out in the Arabian desert, and it's nothing for miles and miles. It's brown and blue, the blue sky and the brown, nothing. And you see something moving in the distance on the ground. And as you get closer, it's like 4 or 5 camels. And they're just humping it, no pun intended, humping it across the desert. There's no water anywhere. They're not near anything because we know what's around there. And these camels are just incredible for their durability. Anyway, okay, so I flew the provost marshal, and he was a historian. But so I'd pick him up, and we'd fly to like Basra, so he could check out the food riots and different things he had to check out. And he'd say, now we're going on a sightseeing mission. And we went up into Mesopotamia, which was one of the cradles of civilization between the Euphrates and the Tigris River. And there's these ancient civilizations that are being excavated, actually. And this one is Ur. This is and actually it's biblical. I think it's in Genesis. And Abraham was born here, though he didn't stay here. And what they're doing is they're excavating. It was actually quite an advanced civilization. These were the first civilizations. It's the first writing, area of the first writing. The first code of law was here. So we got to fly over these, and it's very hard. You're flying an aircraft, you're taking pictures, and you got him in the back seat telling the history. So why we didn't crash, I don't know, but I did. That's why these pictures are not very good because of everything that you're trying to handle. But this did kind of, I had heard about Mesopotamia, but this kind of got me started on a history jaunt when I got back, and I ended up going back up to Berlin to check out the Pergamon Museum that's up there, if you ever get a chance to go see. Okay, so this is something else they did for us in the desert. This is an Iraqi T-72, and what they did was, this was at the headquarters site, and they put it right next to an M1A1, so that we could actually, it was cleared, so we could get in the T-72, and then we could get into the M1A1. And I think I have another picture. This is it's kind of cool. I got to tell you, that's not that interesting. That's interesting. That's an AK-47. And it's got a Republican Guard emblem on the stock, and they let us fire it, go out in the desert and fire it, so we know it an AK-47. And it's very accurate. I was really surprised. Not hard to shoot. Okay, this is Shamal. That's a low-level storm, basically. It's a windstorm, as you can see. And when it comes in, it's that fine, silty sand that it just gets, I don't know how it does it, but it permeates tents even. It gets inside. It's about, your visibility is about 6 inches to a foot when you're in the middle of it. And speaking of fine, silty sand, the one thing that we had to struggle with here is this is the first time since World War II since we've been in the desert. And we just have all this new equipment, and when you get it into a desert environment for a pretty long period of time, what happened was it's that fine silty sand that got in and started chipping away at the compressor blades, and then it caused a backup through the system, which was an ultimate compressor stall, would blow up the engine. And they actually grounded the Blackhawks, until they got better filters, and they were flying the Hueys. So we flew a lot. And another issue with it that happened was it's like sandpaper, and it actually sands away the leading edge of a rotor blade is going supersonic. So it's like grounding away the edge. So they put this tape, and it's not mile-an-hour tape, it's not duct tape. It's this tape that goes down the whole leading edge of the blade. So you're flying on, and the tape takes a beating. So you're flying, and now all of a sudden, your two blades turn into three because that tape has come disengaged and is taking flight, and it's doing its own flying. So you got three rotor blades going, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And realize that tape's not going to work either. So they had a lot of learning to do. Well, we did. We all had a lot of learning to do. Okay. That's my friend of mine. We learned, we were going home. Everybody was so happy. This was at the end of May, actually. Okay, I went too fast. And this is, shoot. Okay, we went through Daharan, came in through Daharan, and left through Daharan to go back home. And that's basically, so I ended up, my whole Army, because this is enough, so I ended up my whole Army career, I flew 4 aircraft for the Army. The one on the bottom, on the bottom left is the one that I learned how to fly from my friend Bob, the serial killer. And flew it, that was in my last unit, I flew OH-58s actually. So when I retired. Okay, so we have a video, and we're gonna see if it works. Okay, this is one of my retirement ceremonies. This is once a month at Fort Myer in Arlington, for anybody and everybody in the military. You have your one time that you can be a part of this ceremony. This is the old guard that was the Revolutionary Guard and Persian Zone, the Army band. So we'll see if it'll work. Just bits and pieces.
That's fine, yeah. Thank you very much, Laura. That was great. We really did a good job with that. Sorry about the clicker difficulties here. It makes it a little difficult, but you did a great job with that, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your service to our country and all those good times you had over there. So, yeah, I'm even having difficulties here. There we go. So stay tuned to your Chapter 288 emails for updates for the next meeting. It's going to be August 20th, and send in some interesting toys that you want to have highlighted during the meeting. And just one more slide. I want to say, fly safe, look out for one another. That's what EAA does. That's what Chapter 288 does. And I'm going to have to apologize. I once heard a joke about somebody on a subway was asking for directions. And, yeah, I can help you. Get off 2 exits before I get off. So if you're watching this, you're watching it already on a video recording. We somehow, Laura, you didn't know this, we somehow lost the feed early into the program. We apologize for that. I'm not sure if it was an internet problem, but it is available. I'll send out an email tonight or tomorrow that you can watch this at home at your leisure, live EAA 288.org. So thank you for watching. Thank you again, Laura, for a great presentation. Matt, Dave for the hangar, Matt for his technical assistance. Have a great night, everybody. Fly safe. Look out for one another. Bye-bye.